Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carpenter, your host, and with me is Mr. Brandon Noe. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm pretty good, Mark. Just making sure that my ringer's off. How you doing?
Oh, I'm glad you said that. I need to do the same. God knows I've had the phone ring too many times during a show. So power that puppy off. And just remember, folks, when you're in the theater, power down your phones and no talking during those dramatic scenes. We've had a few dramatic scenes this past week as baseball is just starting up. There's always something new. There's something interesting going on. And just when you think you got things figured out, no, that's not the case. And I saw that was the case with poor Tommy Pham, man. I always liked Tommy. I like watching him. And I didn't realize he had 15 at-bats and 0 big goose egg, no runs.
Man, I've said it before. He's one of those guys I wish the Rays never got rid of. He was just such a key guy in the locker room, and he was really good on the field. I wish he would have stayed a little bit longer.
I do as well. I mean, he brought in an energy, a dedication, a commitment that is rare. I mean, you don't get MLB without having some of that. But I think Tommy personified that more than most. And he sticks with it. So even after those hitless 15 at bats, he came back this past Saturday against the Padres and had 3 hits in that game. Now, that says something. That means he's been looking at it. He's been reevaluating it. And Tommy said, I'm going to do something about it. And he did. So kudos to Tommy on that.
You just need a little bit of a runway.
Well, there you go. And that was probably the case with, we're going to talk about it in a moment or two as well. The whole idea about getting a little runway. I mean, the runway was shorter this year with spring training. What does that mean? We're going to talk about the runway getting shorter as far as the amount of time people have in the game and what does that look like. But as far as somebody spending some time in the game, and we're not talking moments, we're talking years. We're talking Miguel Cabrera. Oh boy. And that guy has been doing fantastic for the Tigers for some time. Here's a franchise player if I ever saw one.
Yeah, when I think of the Tigers, he's one of those guys that I think of because, for as long as I can remember, he's been there as a Tiger. I forget that he played for the Marlins, and he's got a pretty big milestone coming up here in just a few days, possibly.
Yeah, what's that? Is he X number of years with the Tigers?
I believe... I don't know how long he's played there, but he does have the countdown to 3,000 hits.
Whoa. So he's shooting for that 3,000, man, and it looks like he's going to get there. I was saying, what was it? I think recently was it the Yankees maybe they were playing, and he's got down where he only needs 4. Count them, 4 more hits to hit that 3,000 mark.
Was Jeter the last guy that got the 3,000 hits? Because I can't remember somebody else getting it.
I don't either.
Pujols maybe? Or was he 5,000 or 4,000? I don't remember.
I'm completely at a loss here. I'm not going to pretend like I know, Brandon. Yes, I don't. I actually don't. We could Google it right now, but we'll pay.
Oh, we could.
Let's see. Should we? Could we?
I can do it right now.
Oh, please do.
Believe it or not, we don't know everything. So.
Oh, gosh. Is that possible?
If you listen to the show long enough, you'd know plenty that we don't know everything.
So what do we got? Anything?
Yeah, the last guy to get to 3,000 hits was in 2018 with Albert Pujols.
Ooh.
And before him, it was Adrian Beltre, Ichiro, A-Rod, and then Derek Jeter.
Wow. I didn't realize it. I guess that was a larger club than I thought.
I guess it was me too. I was off by about 10 years almost.
Well, we're talking about the amount of time that it took Miguel Cabrera to get there. Well, he's not there yet, but he will be shortly. I'm sure before the weekend comes, he will have hit number 3,000. So this being Wednesday, April 20th, we'll go ahead and wish you a kudos right now. Congratulations in advance, Miguel. So look forward to hearing that number, hearing that back crack, and putting number 3,000 check marked in your career. But as far as time passing, we were talking about several years as a Detroit Tiger. There's another way people measure time in baseball. More and more fans expect to see shorter and shorter games. the anticipation's there. And MLB probably does as well. Think about it, when a game runs longer, they probably have to pay the employees that work inside the stadium more hours. So can we cut that back? but seriously, there are some measures that are being taken to try to shorten the game. And one thing that's been there for a long time, I know you were saying that you had some information from Jeff Passan on the pitch clock. What's that all about, Brandon?
Yes, I guess, and dad joke incoming. We could call this segment the passing of time.
Ooh, I love it. I love it.
Bad joke there. But yeah, Jeff Passan wrote an article about how the pitch clock has shaved off about 20 minutes of minor league games. And I'll just read some quotes that I thought were pretty important from that article, and I can tweet the link out so you can read the article for yourself. He said, quote, over the first 132 minor league games that included a 14-second pitch clock with the bases empty, 18-second clock with runners on and penalties for pitchers and hitters that run afoul of it, the average game time was 2 hours and 39 minutes. In a control set of 335 games run without the clock to begin the season, games lasted an average of 2 hours and 59 minutes. Around the same 3 hour, 3 minute average in 5,000 plus non-clock games during the 2021 season.
Wow. I mean, you're shaving 20 minutes off of a game. That's significant.
Yeah, that is. And there's different things you can think of it. And he said that more than a third of minor league games over the 3-day sample with the clock ended in less than 2 hours and 30 minutes, including one game that finished in an hour and 59 minutes. And another in 2 hours. And 27% of games fell within the 2.5 to 2 hour 40-minute range, and nearly 3 times the percentage in 2021. Only 15% of games exceeded 3 hours compared to 52% of the games last season with no timer. So it seems to be working.
Well, again, I'm a little surprised at the amount of time that's being saved. I thought it would have been minimal, to be quite honest with you. 20 minutes is quite a bit of time. I thought maybe they would come up with 5 or 10 minutes or something along those lines, but that's rather significant. Like, I'll say that again.
Yeah, I was with you. I didn't think it would be that much. I was thinking, 10 minutes would have been the good amount for the time to shave off just with the pitch clock, and the other ways would have sped it up a little bit, but this seems to be really impressive.
So what are we looking at as far as the evolution of the pitch clock? I mean, pitch clocks have been out there, I think, all along in most ballparks. It's just implementing them or utilizing them. And I mean, they've been doing more with the minor leagues. And now do we know the advent of when these will appear in Major League?
I believe Passan said that it could possibly be next year. Now they do have in the CBA where if they give a 45-day heads up of a rule change to the players that they could do it. But I don't think this is something that they could, just put into the middle of the season, because I mean, we saw what happened with taking out the spider tack in the middle of the season. That didn't wind up so great.
No.
So I think this is something that they would need to say, hey, we're going to do this next year, just so you can use the off season and spring training to help prepare for it, so you're not putting yourself at any more of a risk.
Well, that's interesting you say it, because I mean, risk is something that needs to be considered, because we're seeing enough injuries with pitchers all the time out there. We're been concerned about the length of the spring training. That's part of it. We'll get into some detail about some folks who had something to say about that in a minute. But what are we looking at as far as potential injuries?
There was a doctor. His name was Dr. Mike Sun, and I believe I'm saying that right. I apologize if it's wrong. He's a biochemist, and he specializes in muscle fatigue. And he said that he's worried about injuries to pitchers increasing. But the California League used a pitch clock last season, and pitcher injuries were at the lowest of all levels of baseball.
Huh. Wow, I'd love to hear a little bit more analysis of what Dr. Sun sees about that, because it sounds contradictory to what his initial findings there. So I don't know, man. But
yeah, it was just one season, but I don't know if maybe he was thinking more long term. That could be a possibility. Which I could see that happening. But after one season in the short term, it doesn't look like that's the case. But you just have to give everything time.
And time is what is at stake here, right? Oh, gosh. Oh, speaking of time and looking at the pace of play that comes with baseball games, it's something that, again, the MLB takes very seriously. And if you think about, as you were mentioning a moment ago about spiders, tack, and sticky stuff, while for a long time, there's been a rule out there about, what you can and cannot use. It was quite a while before somebody said, "Hey, here's a problem. Let's fix it." Okay, we need to start enforcing that rule, and here's what we're going to do. Well, that's kind of come along with pace of play, and boy, we saw it, I guess, about a week or so ago with Kenley Jansen of the Dodgers. Man, he was out there facing the Padres. He's a reliever, so as he gets ready to step out there in the mound, he gets out there and he's starting to warm up, and he gets his first pitch and his second pitch. And the next thing you look up, and there is the umpire, and he's putting up a finger, and the finger is 1. And that means, Kenley, you only got one more pitch. You only got a third pitch to make. And he does. And then basically the umpire steps in front of the catcher and says, "That's it. It's done. Sorry. We're going to go ahead and get this game going."
Yeah. I mean, that's not as bad. I understand that because he probably threw like 50 pitches in the bullpen warming up. You don't need to go out there for 5 minutes and throw more warm up pitches. You just need maybe like 5 or 10 to get used to the mound and get it, sort of molded to the way you prefer it. So you don't need to be out there forever. You just need a little warm up lap, so to speak.
Well, and let's face this, Brandon. I mean, it's getting a little crazy anyway. Like I said, the warm up out there should be taking place in the bullpen. And yes, I understand you want to kind of get a connection standing on the mound to the catcher, but a lot of that should have already happened. The other part of this too is, from my understanding, while this rule's been in place a little bit, it's like, hey, umpires, we need to really start enforcing this. So, not surprisingly, that's exactly what happened with Kenley Jansen. And the ironic thing is, at least in this instance, is because there was some controversy about, actually implementing this rule or cutting Jansen after 3 pitches. Jansen and some others, they wanted to talk with the umpire. So there was some conversation there. Then there was a big confab on the mound. And then there's more conversation. Then more minutes pass. And then, oh, yeah, let's get back and have a game.
So it ended up having a worse effect than the ump intended.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's if they're going to make a change, or if they're actually going to enforce a rule, that's fine. And this may be the way that happens. So Kenley Jansen was the first one to fall to that. There is, let's see, what was it? If you look on YouTube for Out West officials, the lady on there, I apologize, I didn't get her name. She put together a really good video on this whole event. And one of the things that she mentions is that when the relief pitcher came out, it took him about a minute and a half to come out of the dugout to get to the mound. So there is a very limited amount of time that is involved from the time that they're basically coming from commercial break to being the pitches to the first pitch to the next batter. Let's see here.
What was this guy doing that he needed over a minute and a half to get out of the dugout? Did he have like the bubble guts or something?
I don't know. Maybe he had some ritual he had to do. Maybe hold his rookie card and look at it and wave over it 3 times before he took it. I don't know. There's ritual things. I mean, you take a look at Garrett Cole on opening day. He couldn't wait to get out of that daggone dugout. So I don't know what preparations or how long it takes for a pitcher to get out of the dugout, but evidently it was a little longer for Kenley Jansen, which cost him a little time on the mound. But, if this isn't anything that's been implemented in the past or really held to the fire as far as say, we're going to do this rule, it's not surprising that there was some sort of reaction to it. But like a lot of things, guess what? Here's the flag, buddy. If you didn't see it before, if you didn't know it was there, it is now, and we're going to do something about it.
Yeah, that happened to me last night. I didn't know that it's considered a balk when a pitcher's on the rubber and he licks his fingers and then he doesn't wipe it off. I didn't know that was a rule.
Are you talking about that Rays game last night?
Oh, no, I was talking about the Blue Jays game.
Oh, tell me about that one then. Go ahead.
I don't remember who the pitcher was, but Angel Hernandez was the umpire who caught it. So I make the jokes there, but that actually is the rule where once you're on the rubber, you can't lick your fingers and not dry it off. I did not know that. And I've been watching baseball pretty much my whole life, and I can't think of a time where I've ever seen that.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. I think I was watching a Rays game the other night, and there was a balk that was called in. And like most times, I just didn't see it. I didn't get it. But the umpire wanted to make it very clear. And usually just tell you it's balk. He stepped out from behind the catcher, took 2 steps, pointed very aggressively at the pitcher and said, balk. And it's like, okay, I get it. But I don't know what happened. Maybe he was licking his fingers too. Should he go out there and check for spider attack at a balk? That's some wacky stuff. Yeah, we joked before, we could probably do a whole show on some of the things that we don't understand in baseball. And the balk is one of the strangest ones, at least for me. So anyway, pace of play, the umpires are trying to keep things rolling right along. And, Kenley Jansen, it was interesting to watch him because I saw the other day they had a big tribute for him too.
Oh, they did? I mean, I've seen a lot of teams do that, but I don't seem to see it very much in baseball.
No, you don't. It was interesting because where he was at Dodger Stadium. He's there, and I mean, he's an Atlanta Brave pitcher. And if you look at the most recent series that just began earlier this week between the Dodgers and the Braves, you look at some of the elements, and the elements actually mean the people, the players on the field. It was interesting to see because the Braves are in LA playing the Dodgers, and something's a little different. Something seems strange. Oh, yeah. That first baseman who used to be with the Braves is now the first baseman for the Dodgers. And a gentleman who had been a reliever for the Dodgers, Kenley Jansen, is, now a reliever for the Braves. So it was a little odd. And the interesting thing is they did have a tribute for Kenley Jansen. You'd think he'd retired from being a Dodger or from the game entirely, but they ran this up there on the scoreboard for 2 or 3 minutes as he was introduced into the game. And it was a nice way to pay tribute to him, but more so than I would have thought many would have done for a player who just opted to sign with another team.
Yeah, I kind of like seeing those tributes. I mean, it's kind of cool to see it. I mean, I've seen the Lightning do it twice this year when Yanni Gourde and Tyler Johnson came back, and that's really cool to always see. The guy can come back and then get the appreciation that they deserve most of the time.
Yeah, it is. I think it should do that too. And to me, it takes a step above just I'm a fan of this team, but I am a fan of that player. I'm a fan of what he's achieved. And, I respect the time he spent with us. So I'm glad they did that for him. But it was also interesting during the beginning of this Dodgers Braves series in LA that Freddie Freeman got his golden, silver Silver Slugger award. And that was presented him by his old manager. So there he is receiving an award. He had as a Brave. Here he is a Dodger. And his old, so I guess it was Snitker who had given him the award out there. So, and then Freeman goes ahead. He hasn't seen most of these guys since the parade when they won the World Series, meaning the Braves. And he goes over and somebody was counting, I don't know who's. He embraced 25 different people and he cried 4 separate times. I said, what? I know we're in the analytics, but that one's a little shady.
Who was it that called him out last week that said that they weren't really friends in the clubhouse? I don't remember who that was, but was it Acuna? Possibly.
Yeah, I think so, because it was somebody I didn't expect it from. I remember that much. Just like, it's interesting. I don't know. I don't get that. I know that there's always the PR persona that's put out there for every player on a team. And you don't know what goes back into the dark side of the clubhouse. But it seemed a bit much, and I'm not sure why that would even needed to be said, except there was a lot of back and forth about why didn't Freddie sign with the team. Chipper Jones had his words to say about that and others. But what's interesting is that when the Dodgers picked up Freddie Freeman, they had to look closely at their budget. And part of that is they were still negotiating with Kenley Jansen is if he was going to return as a Dodger and a relief pitcher. Well, they were still trying to figure out what they were going to do with their budget, and they didn't come to a conclusion quick enough for Jansen, and he went ahead and had an offer from the Braves and signed with them. So it's kind of interesting, the intertwining, if you will, of what happens with some of these games, or I should say, what happens with some of these teams and these free agents.
Yeah, it's sort of like an unofficial trade, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is, when you're basically saying, I'm not going to pay you what you want right now. I'm going to look elsewhere. I guess, yeah, it kind of is. All right, so we've talked a little bit about, some of these guys coming back, and we're talking about pace of play. But do you have any examples recently of some things where we've seen the pace of play kind of vary from place to place?
Yeah, I have, and I'll just take the last two series that the Dodgers have played in. And last night's game, which was the second game of the series against the Braves, it was 2 hours, 49 minutes. But game one was 3 hours and 14 minutes. So close to a half hour difference there. And then the series against the Reds, the first game was 3 hours and 10 minutes. Second, 3:15. Game 3, 2 hours, 53 minutes. And game 4, 3 hours and 2 minutes. So
wow.
So quite a range of times.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, how much a pitch clock is going to affect that, because to me, I'm seeing more and more patient batters. Either they're fouling off pitch after pitch, or they're waiting for a walk. And I don't know if there's actual increase of that or not, but it seems like I am feeling it more when I'm watching these games. So I don't know how much that impacts it as well.
And it seems like at the major league level, guys take their time a bit more between pitches. They'll every pitch they'll back out, readjust their gloves, walk around, or adjust themselves. They seem to take a little bit more time at the major league level than they do from what I've seen in minor league levels and even college.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I don't know that that's going to change. We'll see. With the pitch clock. But talking about change, let's talk about a guy who's been around the game for a while. We're kind of bouncing back and forth here, but with the Dodgers, Clayton Kershaw, man, he's been phenomenal. And this is a little bit old news because last week, he was going 7 innings and just killing it, absolutely killing it. But lo and behold, after sending 7 innings, his manager Dave Roberts says, "Hey, come on, I'm taking you out." And Clayton was, he said basically it was a tough call, but he understood it. He said, well, part of that's because we had a limited spring training season. And he blamed part of it also on the lockout, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I think I said it last week, if this were later in the season, I'd be a little bit more, kind of like, I don't know how to word it, maybe upset, maybe.
Yeah.
That might not be the word for it, but this doesn't really bother me very much because, like you said, they had a rushed off season, and I don't really see a whole bunch of pitchers going deep or having high pitch counts at this point in the season because of that ramp up time. And even then, some of these guys have injuries because they didn't have that ramp up time. So right now you want to be a little bit careful. So I can't really blame Dave Roberts for doing that, even though he does have the track record for pulling guys during perfect games.
It was interesting though, because last night, again, Clayton Kershaw is taking the mound, and he's got his first baseman over there, Freddie Freeman. And was it last night or the night before? Freeman had his first home run.
I believe it was the first game of the series.
Okay. All right. So Monday night, he had his first home run of the season. And let's go ahead and play this little bit, this blurb about, they asked him, I said, what was it like?
Kind of just hit it, and I was like, oh my gosh, please go out. But it was just one of those moments that, obviously I just wanted to play well. It doesn't matter who the opponent is, but I think Trey mentioned it earlier. He's like, that was great of you to wait 9 games to hit your first home run to have your first one against the Braves, but and it worked out. But it's just good. I'm glad I had a lot of family here that they got to see me hit home run.
Yeah, sounds like good times.
That's not awkward at all, is it?
No. I'm sorry. Why did you wait 9 games to have your first home run of the season? and knocked that out against the Braves. That was fun. And wow, that was also that game. As long as we're looking at numbers, that was Clayton Kershaw's, I think, was it his 100th win?
I believe you are correct.
Yeah. So that was Clayton, a historic night. But Kershaw was able to do that. I don't think it was necessarily his best night, but what was also interesting was watching during the series. And Kenley Jansen, who we spoke of earlier, came up and struck out. Mr. Freddie Freeman there at the end of the game. So it's really kind of weird looking at this little, I don't know if we call it a confluence between those two teams. And is there karma that's been exchanged? Is there certain things that are predestined to happen between the Dodgers and the Braves? I mean, after the Dodgers lost the NLCS last year to the Braves, who took the whole shebang, winning the World Series, it just seemed kind of a strange feel. Of course, we're out in LA.
Yeah, I think it's just more awkward than anything else. Because I mean, I saw some of like the pregame stuff, and it seemed a little. Nobody looked like they had ill will, but nobody really looked like they wanted to really be there. That was just my take.
And it wasn't like we were watching one of those games that's going up there in the Northeast right now, where everybody is so bundled up. You know, I've been watching a few of those games. It's like, yeah, it's like, gee, man, and you see the players out there with these little hand warmers that are attached to their belt or whatever. Anyway, we won't get into all that, but it is interesting watching the Dodgers. It's going to be interesting to see how they play the rest this year. I mean, if we look at the history of what having Dave Roberts with that team, I mean, he's been outstanding. Let's see, what was it? I think he came in 2016. Look, a quick little breakdown here. They lost the NLCS to the Cubs in 6 games. 2017, they lost the World Series to the Astros. 18 lost World Series to that's right, Astros. World Series to the Red Sox in 5 games. They lost the NLDS to Nationals in 5 games. 2019, and in 2020 they won the World Series in 6 games. As you and I both felt that pain. And then last year they lost the NLCS to the Braves in 6 games. So, you know, Dave Roberts has achieved quite a bit to keep them at that level, but Dodger fans expect a lot. And, you know, now that Freddie's with that team, I mean, he's just one other component that's going to make that team, you know, grow and flow. We could talk about that whole lineup if you like, but we don't have time for that. I do want to say, you know, Freddie Freeman is appreciative of being there. And one of the things that people were asking about, well, now that you're here, what's it like being side by side with Clayton Kershaw? Here's what he had to say.
To play behind it, I just get to smile now because I don't have to face it anymore. So Clayton was Clayton again. He gives you a chance to win every single time he goes out there, and that's all you could ask for.
Yeah, so he appreciates being part of Clayton's team as Clayton put on their 100th win, you know, in baseball. So that was really good to see.
Yeah, I imagine it's always a little bit of a relief when you don't have to face the guy because you're on his team. You know, sort of like when you have Tom Brady on your team, or like a Madison Bumgarner, one of those type of guys on your team.
Yeah. So there's, you know, you bring up Brady and some of the things went on with him. And as a Tampa fan, really glad to see him come back. But there's also some folks we're looking at who are retiring. I know this past week, Tom Watson with the Dodgers. He's been one of the relievers. He's retired. I don't know if it's because of bringing in Jansen as well, but maybe it's just his time. Well, there's also another classy player out there who said he was going to be retiring. About who was that you have on the list there, Brandon?
Yeah, Jake Arrieta. He kind of surprised me when he said that he was coming out and retiring, and I don't know why, but it just sounded like to me, you know, he's ready to move on with his life, you know, the next chapter, and he's satisfied with his career. And I mean, I don't blame him. He had a really good career and even got a ring out of it.
That means a lot. So congratulations, Jake. We salute you for your career. And, you know, people move on. And we're going to move on at this moment. We've talked a lot about the Braves and the Dodgers this past week, and it's been real exciting. But there's other things going on in the world. I know we get Mary Kitts on here sometime. We're talking about softball. And continually, Oklahoma has been at the top, you know, numero uno of the Division I. And it wasn't until this past week that they lost a game, man. They were on a 40-game winning streak, and Texas came up and, bam, knocked that out.
Yeah, I mean, imagine it's a double whammy too, because not only do you lose your 46-game winning streak or your 40-game winning streak, whatever the number was, but it's also your biggest rival that ends it. So
Yeah.
it's sort of the double whammy.
And actually, they had a player, I think, who was stepping back, they being Oklahoma, who's stepping back from the game. And that may have had some impact too. I don't know. So we'll have to talk to Mary Kidd sometime soon and get the lowdown on all that. What else is going out in the wild, wild world of sports?
Oh man, there's a ton of stuff going on. I mean, I talked about the Bristol dirt race last week, and that was a fantastic race in my opinion. You know, the finish was crazy between Chase Briscoe and Tyler Reddick. And if you haven't watched it, I have it retweeted on my timeline to where you can go see it. That was a crazy finish. And, you know, the NBA playoffs are going on, and, you know, I'm starting to get a little excited about the Nets and the Celtics series. You know, Kyrie, he's not taking too kindly to the fans booing him and calling them names. So he's giving them the finger and among other things that I can't repeat on this show, but a little bit of bad blood's never a bad thing in the playoffs.
Yeah, keep the game interesting, brother.
So definitely something I'll be tuning in throughout this weekend. I mean, I'll take six more games of that series.
Well, and enjoy that. And sooner or later, I got to start looking and finding out what's coming up on the Kentucky Derby, which will be here in the beginning of May. So we may share a little bit about that. This game, you know, we're all about baseball and baseball biz, but we realize there is a world around us too. So we'll give you a few nuggets on our interest with that as well. Any other goodies, Brandon?
No, I think I have everything that I wanted to say out.
Well, I tell you what, man, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season, watching all of these teams. And next week, we are looking forward, hopefully having a gentleman who's Nathan Andrews from Full Count Chaos from Baltimore. So we'll see if we can talk with him a bit about what's happening with that team. He had an episode of the day called The Season of Hope, and I thought that was appropriate for the Baltimores at any time. So we'll see how that goes. Oh, brother.
You have to have some hope when you're down like they are most of the time. You got to have some hope. But
well, it should be an interesting show. I'm looking forward to that. All right, my friend, you want to take us out?
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening once again. Remember to like, rate, review, subscribe, spread the word about the show, and you can find us on Twitter. I'm at SportsBlitzPod, and Mark is at TheBaseballBiz. And you can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeart, pretty much anywhere where you can listen to podcasts. You can find our beautiful voices to talk baseball to you. And we'll see you all next week.
Thanks, Brandon. We'll talk to you guys again real soon. Special thanks to XTaKeRuX for the music, Rocking Forward.